Hey, how's it going? It's PM Designs, and I wanted to show a few images that I took when I went on a recent trip that to Beau Rivage in Biloxi, Mississippi. I mainly wanted to take a little trip and just go somewhere different and take some different photos, a different place. So that's what I did. Um, so this first image that you're seeing was shot with the A7 with the 28-70, just the standard kit lens that you get with the camera. If you buy the version that comes with the kit lens, obviously if you buy body only, you only get a body. But I also brought my 7200 f4 Sony, my a6000 with the 16-50 and the 55-210 lens, and all the images that you're going to see were shot using those lenses. I did have my Minolta lenses with me, but I ended up not ever using any of them. I kind of wish I would have, but I didn't. But you know, I had a good time, and hopefully one day I'll be able to go back and use some of the different lenses and try out some different things, since this time was my first time going and taking pictures out there. So it was more of a learning experience and figuring out, you know, where's some good places to take pictures, things that I'd want to take more pictures of, things that I'd do different, you know, if I get the chance to go back. So, which I'm sure I will. But one of the things that I learned when I went was you probably don't so much need to carry around so much gear. You know, the way I did it is I had one tripod that came up to the room with me, one tripod that stayed in the car. Mainly that way I wouldn't have to walk through the hotel with, you know, carrying a tripod and a camera, and it may cause question. So I figured if I want to take pictures outside, I'll just go to the car, grab the tripod from the car, and use it outside. And if I wanted to take some pictures from the room like I did, use the second tripod from in the room. So go ahead and look through some of these images. This one that you've been looking at while I've been talking was in the main, not the lobby, but the main hall through the hotel portion. Now, when I checked into my room, I talked to the lady that was checking me in, and I told her, I said I was interested in taking some photos in the hotel portion. I know the casino portion is off limits to photography and video and all that, and I understand that. But what about the rest? Is there any kind of policies with that? And she said non-commercial, and I said yes ma'am, you know, just personal use, sharing with friends, family. And she was like, no, not a problem at all. We have a lot of people that actually come and do that. And you know, her and I kind of a little talk and stuff. And, you know, I told her, I was like, I figured I'd better ask, you know, even though it's kind of an off-the-wall question. Better to ask and find out than, you know, get fussed at for something. At least this way, if someone would have said anything, I can always come back to saying, you know, I was told that I could by this person. It was best to just ask questions, and possibly next time I go back, I'll show them the images I took, and might end up being that I talk to the right person and they say, by the way, if you wanted to take some pictures, come back at this time and you can go I'll let you go over to this place that you can take some really cool pictures of this or that, or you can get a really different angle on this portion of the hotel, something like that. You never know. So we're gonna kind of go through these, and I'm gonna talk about them as I go. This one, surprisingly, was shot at 5000 ISO. I was shooting at shutter priority at 1/125th of a second on this particular image. Only reason I know this is because a friend of mine pointed out, I was like, wow, that's really sharp. And then when he saw the ISO, he was like, whoa, that's really good for that high of an ISO. I mean, you can see some grain and noise in the white portion of the ceiling, but other than that, it's a pretty clear image. And this was taken at night, handheld, probably at the same 1/125th of a second, auto ISO, auto aperture. And I took a few of these because, being that it was at night, I mean, the hotel is really well lit on the outside. but I took a few different exposures of it, underexposing it, because I wanted to get the Beau Rivage where it was lit, but it wasn't, blown out. So this one was the image, and then I converted it to black and white, and I was really pleased with the image I got. This was a long exposure. I mean, as you can tell, the hotel is really, really well illuminated. But this was just from, the top of the parking garage, and just one of those shots I just figured, it looks kind of cool. Sorry, I got a little bit of congestion going on. This was taken from the top of the parking garage as well. I wanted to take some pictures of, getting the light trails and, the little bit of cloud movement that you can see. But this was just taken, setting up the tripod. If you look at the bottom portion, the bottom right corner, there's like where it has like the railing and then the concrete like pillar portions of it. I set up my tripod on top of one of those, and that's how I got this shot. I had taken one where I had the legs extended out a decent amount, and it was pretty windy that evening, so I got a little bit of camera shake, and it wasn't really something that you could notice if you were looking at it, the full image. But if you started cropping into it and doing a little bit of pixel peeping, you could see that it wasn't a stable image. So, and then this was a little bit earlier on in the day, probably earlier in the evening, looking out of the skylight kind of areas. If you can see in the top right corner of the image, it was a little bit earlier on in the evening. But my only thing is, in this image, you can see an issue that I have. If you notice, there's a little bit of vignetting in the corner. When you look at the image on the camera, and when the image is initially opened in Lightroom or in any preview program, I'm using an Apple, so when it's opened in preview, it's not visible. But for some reason, when it's loading the image and it finishes loading it, it does some kind of weird, like, tries to flatten the image, but it ends up putting like a curve to it, and I can't figure out what's causing it to do that. So, but this one was a little bit at a higher ISO. As you can see, some of the noise in the back portion of the image, the parts of the image that are further away. But this was just one of those shots. And this one has that same issue as the previous image I showed you, where it did the little bit of weird vignetting and kind of bowed the image a little bit. But this was just walking back to the room, and it was one of those ones that it color just didn't look as. This one, I just felt like it, with the floral patterns and stuff, it just had that old feel. So black and white kind of worked well, and the grain's not, the grain kind of with the whatever. I don't know what ISO I'd shot this one at, but it to me it worked well as a black and white. And then this one was taken probably from my hotel room, looking out and on the, I believe that's Highway 90, but getting the light trails and stuff. And the funny thing is before I left, I looked on Flickr, which is where these images are. I had looked on Flickr at some pictures around Biloxi and Beau Rivage and stuff like that, and I had seen a few pictures of a lighthouse, and I was like, wow, I'd really like to go try and find that. And I was thinking, for some reason, it was at the opposite end, further away from where I was staying, but it turned out it's actually right by where I was staying. And the only reason I know, the only reason I figured out where it was when I was taking some of these images, I wanted to see if I was getting camera shake, because I wasn't using a very expensive tripod, and I had the 70-200 f4 on the A7, so I was hoping that I didn't have any camera shake. One thing I did learn is disable image stabilization on your camera or your lens, or both, if you have image stabilization on both things, because when you're doing these long exposures, the image stabilization can introduce camera shake, although it's not the camera shaking, it's just things moving around minute amounts, and a long exposure it will affect the image. So go ahead and make sure you disable those things. But I ended up zooming in on the image on the back of the camera, and I was like, it wasn't this image, but it was another one of the images I'd taken that ended up not making my cut, or maybe it did. I'll have to see. But ended up realizing, I was like, wait a minute, there's that lighthouse. So it was kind of one of those, I kind of laughed a little bit just because I was thinking it was way on the other side, but it wasn't. And this one was, I went and we'll go back to the last image, and if you see, actually we really go back to the way back image, the other long exposure, but you can see there's a little boardwalk that circles the on-ramp that goes out over the water. And I went out there and taken some photos, and this was when I was coming back to the hotel, just with the trees kind of coming over the walking path and the different landscaping that they have. It was just, to me, I thought it was kind of a cool image, with the path and the little entrance way and all that. And then this was taken on that little boardwalk or that walk path, whichever one. I'll probably be calling it a boardwalk from here on in, or here on out. But I took this one as just, because you got the beach and then all the roadway and stuff like that, and it's just kind of how you have the natural beach, and then you have the road and all that stuff, and the power lines, and just just kind of a mixing up of just natural and man-made. And this one, if you've looked through my Flickr gallery, I think it may be posted there. I had taken a picture a while back, like when I first started getting into photography with DSLRs and stuff, and there was a metal pipe with a rag kind of draped over it, just like a little washcloth like this. And to me, I thought it was kind of funny that I would go out here and there's same kind of thing, someone looks like the same towels that they have in the Beau Rivage hotel. So I think it was probably just someone out there and had a towel, and forgot, maybe they started fishing, or they just were doing whatever, and they forgot, they just put the towel there and forgot to pick it up when they were going back to the hotel, or who knows. And this one, I was looking over the side of the little boardwalk, and I saw they had some little prints from where a bird was, walking. And they had a bunch of like bird prints and footprints and shoe prints, but to me, I just figured it looked more nature-like to have the bird prints and stuff. And this one, you can see, like, this was shot with the a6000, like the other daytime photos were. And to me, I just, it shows the quality of the a6000, which I was really impressed. It's not a cheap camera. It's less expensive than the A7 series of cameras, obviously, because it's a crop sensor. But to me, it's a perfect walk around. You're still going to get great images from it. And this was the A6000 as well. Most of the night shots were taken with the A7 just because of the full frame, better low light and high ISO performance of it. So I mainly used that one for the darker shots, and use the a6000 for the longer distance shots, as well as the daytime stuff. Obviously, if you've been into photography for any length of time, you know that when you're shooting with a crop sensor, it crops your focal length as well. So your focal length ends up being, usually like on an aps-c size sensor, you're looking at a 1.5 time crop or 1.6 times time crop. So if you're shooting on a 200 mil lens, you're basically shooting on a 300 mil 35 equivalent focal length. So you get a little bit more reach. So some of the later photos that you'll see, I took advantage of that that crop factor, and it was actually one of those things I kind of realized looking through the images and stuff and looking at them with 100% crop on them. The a6000, or the A7 rather, retains a lot more of the detail when you crop in on the image, whereas the a6000 you end up losing a fair amount of detail when you start cropping heavily into that image. They had a boat that passed, and I took pretty much the same picture with the boat in about the same area with both cameras, and when I would hit the zoom in button, it automatically goes into 100 times crop. And on the A7 I could still make out the people on the deck of the boat, whereas the A6000 you knew that there was people, but you couldn't make out the finer details like you could on the A7. And they had a few birds, you know, hanging out by the water and stuff, so I was taking pictures of those. This one I really like. You know, it shows the dynamic range, you know, and texture and detail that the a6000 can pick up on. You know, you can see the feathers on the bird, you know, the different colors in the legs, you know, the different colors in the feathers on the bird, on the beak. You know, you can get some of the different coloring. And then on the concrete that he's standing on, you can see the texture in the whatever little things or creatures or whatever it is that's growing on the side of it, as well as when you look up at where the actual support for the bridge is on the top of that support pad, you can see where the concrete's, you know, chipping off, and the different layers and the texture and the color behind that. So to me, that was, you know, it was you know, it just shows the detail of that the a6000 is capable of. I mean, and in this one, you know, same thing with the bird. And I almost want to say that might, yeah, that's the same bird, just two different angles. It actually wasn't until just now that I realized that was the picture of the same bird. But you know, it just shows with the dynamic range of the camera and everything. And this one thing I'm really impressed with that this camera does is it picks up the color in the sky really well. I mean, obviously there was some cloud cover, but you know, a lot of times I find you end up getting just kind of either a light, you know, almost white sky, or all bluish sky. You don't really pick up the clouds. You know, it's on, at least on the previous cameras I've had, but this camera just seems to do a really good job with the color and picking up the colors and stuff. And you know, this one was you know, I have this thing with signs and, you know, just things that are, you know, out of place, or you know, just those little things that you kind of pick up on over the years, that end up kind of becoming interesting, and just become a thing that catches your eye and stuff. And you know, you have the two different signs. You have the sign with all the beach rules, and you know, you have the sign about, you know, put trash in its place. And then when you look out on the sand on the beach, you know, you get the you see that there's like, you know, it's actually like some clothing and a, you know, book bag or something. And then, you know, on the other side you have someone that stuck a Coke can or a beer can or something, you know, in between the little boardwalk and the sign. And you know, just stuff like that kind of catches my eye. And then this was pretty much taken from that same spot that I was standing to take that other picture. Pretty much just turned around and took a picture of the hotel. And you know, obviously that's, you know, the on/off ramp for the interstate to what is Highway 90, I believe. I actually took a few photos of the same, you know, because I'd taken it the first time and I was like, oh, there's cars in the picture. And then I took a second one, and like, it was pretty much no vehicle traffic on it. And then like right after I took it, I looked and I was like, a truck had just started to come in. So I ended up taking a few photos and finally got one where there wasn't a vehicle driving in. So, but I mean, like I said, this one, it's just the color and texture in the concrete, and you know, the stones and stuff. It to me it produces a very clean image. You know, I'm happy with the purchase of the a6000 and the A7. And in this one, you know, just taking a picture of the beach and stuff. And Just, you go to the beach, you kind of have to take a picture of the beach or something. It's just one of those, if you come back and you show people pictures and you don't have a picture of just water, sand, and sky, you kind of, they're gonna, why'd you go to the beach? And once again, like I said, I'm kind of with sides and stuff like that, and no diving, shallow water, which one of the times I went many years ago, it was very low tide, and the whole area underneath the bridge, or the boardwalk and bridge, was all exposed. It was all, the tide was far enough out, and it was just all sand under there. So I do know for a fact that it is very shallow under there. So, and then this was just you got the sawhorses and some replacement boards, and you can see you got the new deck boards down, and then the section of old deck boards and stuff, and then this was the remnants of an old pier, probably that got destroyed during Katrina, I would assume. And then you have the the where that railing is the marina for the Beau Rivage, and the little boathouse, lighthouse, whatever. I mean, it didn't look like it was used for anything. It also didn't look like the marina was open. There were no boats, docked in there. So I'm not sure what they used that building for. To me, it doesn't look very big, so it doesn't look like a building that you could have like a gathering in. But I'm not 100% sure. This one was taken from the hotel room, just out on the town and stuff, and you can see the water towers, the little smokestacks from maybe a power plant or a factory over there. Some of the buildings and stuff, probably condos and hotels and different things. But I'd taken this one, and I underexposed, and then when I was doing my post-processing, I brought up the shadows and stuff so you could see the town and stuff. Because to me, with the way the sunlight was casting the rays through the clouds like that, it just made sense to bring the lower part of the image with the town and everything, bring that up to where you could see that. And to me, I really like this image. I'd probably use this as a desktop wallpaper or something. I'm really happy with this image. And in this one, they had a helicopter that while I was in my room, because my room was facing, where the parking garage, I can look out, and if I look to the side was the parking garage. And I kept thinking it was, just a car or a motorcycle with really loud exhaust or something. But I happened to look out the window, and I saw this helicopter fly right outside my window, and it was one of those, man, I wish I'd have caught that. I wish I'd been standing there, because I had been standing by the window taking pictures of the birds and boats and stuff that were passing, and I tried to get a good close picture of the helicopter. I had one, but it's just the background of the image wasn't all that spectacular. So but this one, you got the sun over on the right side. I mean, you can tell that the sun's over there, but I cropped in from that, even though I really don't care to crop my images. It was too overpowering, and it took away from the subject, which was the helicopter. And being that I blocked it out, that the sun's still over there, so it's mentally, you have the perspective of it. But then your eye focuses to the helicopter, and when you're looking at the helicopter, you see the jet trail from an aircraft or something that's flying at a higher altitude. So to me, it's just kind of a cool image. And then this is one of the boats that was passing outside of the behind the hotel on the Gulf. And I just took it because I really don't see sailboats that often. You did have your normal motorized boats and stuff, and your larger boats and stuff, but to me this was just kind of one of those you don't see too often kind of things. And just some birds flying outside the hotel room. A lot of this was just trying out and just trying to get a good feel for the cameras, because my biggest thing is when I go someplace, I like to feel confident with my cameras. And I had just picked up the a6000 prior, a couple days prior to leaving, and a lot of it was that I was going there with the A7, and I could have brought my Canon stuff with me, but the issue is if I would have brought that, if I would have had any kind of issue with anything, and my A7 would have been non-functioning, I would have had basically I'd have been out there with just a camera phone. So, and then it was also, if I'd have brought the Canon stuff, I would have had to bring the Canon the T3, all the lenses for it. It had just been a whole nother group of things to pack. So my biggest thing was, since I'm moving to Sony, and I enjoy the Sony stuff, and it's a much newer camera, so obviously it's much higher quality than the T3 that I was using prior to this, or prior to the A7 and the A6000. But me, with just my switch to mirrorless, I much prefer using a mirrorless camera, and I much prefer this. I'm really enjoying the Sony system. So basically, I'm pretty much getting rid of all my Canon stuff. Although with the price and stuff, to me it's almost one of those. It's at the price point that with the. It is what it is. It's an inexpensive entry level camera, so it may be one of those things that I end up just hanging on to, and whenever someone wants to learn about photography, let them use that way. If they don't have to feel like if something happens, they bump into something, which obviously, I want everybody to take care of my equipment, but to me it's just, I figure I'll just hang on to it, or I may sell it. I'm not sure. And this, which I believe this is also the last image, it was just one of those random, I'm a car person, so I'd seen this car going by, and you got the little intake on the top. It looks like it's got some kind of radiator mounted in it, and cool, some kind of lines coming off of it, and the cool paint, and the kind of off-road tires, and to me it was a pretty cool little Volkswagen. And you can see the sticker on there. Yeah, it's got a Hemi. So it was just kind of a cool car. And if I'd have been down in the parking garage area when whoever was driving this car would have pulled up, I really would have asked them, hey, do you mind if I take some pictures of your car? This thing's pretty cool. But whenever I did go down there, I didn't see it anymore. So, but really cool looking car. So, like I said, that's all the images. But just go ahead and go back to maybe a little bit more visually appealing image for the last little ramblings on. But definitely, if you go someplace. I'd love to go back. I lucked out when I had some time that I could take off and go. The rates were really, really reasonable. Because normally, if you go in there, you're looking at, upwards of $200-300, which, that's, I guess, par for the course for staying on the beach in a nice, hotel/resort casino thing. But ultimately, it was a good time, and I didn't stay for very long, but I stayed for enough to get some photos that I think are good. And if I do go back, and I'm sure I will, I know I didn't do it so much that next time it'll be okay. I'm taking the same picture. I took this one last time. I went and did this, And my thing is, after going for this little trip, is I'm also thinking about going and doing this again. Maybe not to this particular place, but going other places for that I can drive there, leave in the morning, get there by the afternoon, kind of thing. Stay, a night, leave in the morning, get back by the afternoon of the next day. So I I get the afternoon time to take the pictures, and then I also get to take pictures in the morning, well, in the afternoon, evening time, and sunrise and stuff. I didn't get to take any pictures the next morning because I ended up sleeping in late because I didn't fall asleep till late. But it was definitely one of those things that, it's, I left, if you treat this kind of like a meal, I guess, I left enough on the plate or I left enough food on that buffet to where I want to go back. I didn't exhaust myself, and then because I knew I was only going to be there for a certain amount of time, it wasn't okay. Well, I just got here. Let me sit down and let me take a nap. It was all right. I got here. Let me get the camera gear out. Let me get the laptop out. Let me get everything going. Let's start shooting images. And to me, I think that helped out a lot because instead of sitting there and being okay, well, I've got 3 days that I'm gonna be here. I've got 5 days that I'm gonna be here. I can take the pictures Tuesday night or Wednesday night, something like that. I was able to be, I'm here, unpack the stuff, get the stuff going. Let's get shots being made. And also I learned what gear to bring, what gear, I don't need to bring. So next time I go on little trips, I'll know better what to bring. And one thing, which the one thing I dislike about using QuickTime for doing these screen recordings is it doesn't give you a time. Although I guess I could have looked at the clock when I started recording this. But anywho, I was looking on Flickr a while back at a6000 stuff just to see some other images people have taken and what different lenses and stuff look like on it. And I'd come across a picture, and I forget who the individual was, but they had either made or purchased some little woven paracord wrist straps for their camera. And the thing about when I'd seen that, I was thinking, I started looking on Google and Amazon and looking for where this person got them from. Probably could have sent them a message and asked, but ended up finding out online how to make them, and ended up just making a couple for myself. And so basically I have a little paracord wrist strap that you can slip your wrist through, and then the loop coming off of it is attached onto the camera on where the neck strap would go. And the reason why I really like that is because I have my black rapid strap that I use on the A7, so I don't need the neck strap on there. But if I don't want to use the black rapid strap because I'm just using the little 28-70, I'm gonna just want to walk around with the camera just holding on to it. Oh, there's a picture, click, take. Because a lot of what I did is when I would walk out of my hotel room, I would have my camera ready. I'd pop the lens cap as soon as I walked out the door of my hotel room and I was walking to the elevator. I'd pop the lens cap off, stick it in my pocket. If I needed to flip the lens hood around, put the lens hood in place, I was ready to go. And that was the one big thing I think is important, especially if you're doing something like this, is have your camera ready to go. Like, I even went, some of the times I went out there, I'd walk outside my room and, I'd turn the camera on right away and just keep it to where, if there was some candid shot that I wanted to get, all I'd have to do is pick the camera up, click. I didn't have to wait, didn't have to turn it on, wait for it to come on. But with the little wrist strap, I just figured it would be I can just have it on there more for just a safety cord to the camera. So if I happen to do something, I don't have to worry about dropping the camera. And I also don't have a wrist strap, flapping around and stuff. And also on my A7, if I want to put the black rapid strap on it, it's not this big, neck strap hanging off of it. It's just a small little wrist lanyard that doesn't really, in my opinion, take up any place. And, just crossed my mind, I can take, and when I put the tripod screw in that the black rabbit strap clips on, I can just, kind of weave the little wrist lanyard thing into that, you know, so it just kind of holds it out of the way. So I guess, you know, it was definitely a fun time. So thanks for watching, and I'm sure I've rambled on longer than I'm sure none of y'all have even watched this portion of the video. So hope you enjoyed the images, and you know, as always, get out there, shoot some pictures, and I hope that you were able to take away a few little tips and ideas and stuff. And always, you know, I've always been told this, because it's been many years since I've taken any form of vacation, you know, actually going someplace other than just staying home and working on little projects around the house and stuff. But definitely take time to just get out of your normal area, go do something enjoyable in a different setting, and you know, it's definitely mentally rewarding to have that little bit of downtime and just doing something that you enjoy. So as always, get out there and shoot some pictures. You can watch all these videos, but it's not going to improve your photography skills. The only way that they're going to improve is actually getting out there and putting what you've watched into practice. Have a great one.